Good evening, students.
Hi.
Starting with the topic of financial ratios. I suppose you can see my screen. Everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm audible now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Ratios normally where it is going to come more in the. You will be having more of these questions coming in the. You can say the case studies type because they will give you to prepare the financial statements and then from there calculate the ratios, interpret the ratios, given the industry ratios or the competitors ratios. So another company's ratios are given and you are asked to compare, contrast and interpret the ratios. Okay, so that is one. So you can get a full-fledged question on ratio analysis for case study. And in the calculation of ratios, MCQs, what they can do is they can give you short questions as I have in my one PDF is shared with you. So if you see in that PDF, there are two small questions which I've given. So those type of questions can be asked. And more so, also what we can have is we can have ratios where questions on ratios where we are having the questions not only testing the formulas, the knowledge of formulas, but the ratios ka what will happen to the ratios in case numerator changes, denominator changes. So these type of questions. So it is not only sufficient to study the formulas, but in addition to the formulas, you also have to know how to interpret the ratios and also have to know what will happen if the numerator or the denominator of the ratio changes. So increase or decrease in the numerator, increase or decrease in the denominator. What will be the impact of that on the ratios? And then interpretation, you have to be a little bit careful because a ratio का एक problem जो है वो ये है कि single ratio cannot be interpreted by itself. So only one ratio, if you give me and ask me to interpret that ratio, I may not be able to give you the correct interpretation until and unless I see other ratios along with it. Right? So we normally tell the students don't jump to conclusions when you're interpreting ratios because one single ratio may not help you to interpret what is happening in the company. एक simple सा example देता हूँ कि in a classroom, I always give this example to all my students. कि समझो in a classroom there are in my class or in my batch there are only 2 students. Okay, and out of the 2 students, 1 student is absent. And you ask me how many students have come today for the class. I'd say 50% of the students have come because 1 out of 2 is 50%. So 50% of the students have come to the class. That doesn't mean that 100 students का class था उसमें से 50 students गायब या 50 students का class था उसमें से 25 are not there. It means that 2 students are there out of 1 has not come. So ratios does not give us a correct picture if I take it in isolation. Right? If I take one single ratio, I may not get the idea as to how to interpret that ratio. Second limitation of ratio is that if I take a ratio and I interpret that particular ratio without looking at other ratios, then there is a possibility that I may go for wrong interpretation. Ratio interpretation में दो इंटरप्रिटेशन होते हैं. एक तो नॉर्मली क्या है कि फॉर एग्जांपल if the gross profit is something around 60%, I can say, okay, gross profit is very good because it is around 60%. Comparatively, another company may have only 40% of gross profit. So I'll say that my company is better because 60% is a good amount, it's a high amount, and therefore my company has got a better ratio as compared to the other company. ये normal interpretation. लेकिन क्या हो सकता है? We have to understand the entire financial statement now. Since we are going for a FM exam, FM exam from the ACCA point of view. So ACCA का level is professional level, in the sense that you are going for an international professional exam. So you have to know that you have to be a little bit smart when you're writing the answer. So if you are having profit more, there is a possibility. I always used to say in the class, right, that if the profit is more, then it is possible that the inventory, closing inventory is overvalued. So there is a possibility that closing inventory is overvalued. And as a result of that, my profits are more. On the other hand, it may so happen that my gross profit ratio is 40%. So अगर 40% है, is it bad? Can I directly write that it is bad? So advise not to write like that. The reason being that 40% also may not be bad if I have a good amount of inventory. Inventory is correctly valued and profits are, the cost is under control. So it is a good ratio. So what is good and what is not good does not depend only on one single ratio, does not depend only on the normal interpretation of the ratio. It also means that we have to take other figures and other ratios into consideration. We have done a few ratios when we were doing working capital. So working capital में current ratio था 2:1. We had a standard ratio for that 2:1. So 2:1, I told you, अगर 2:1 से ज्यादा है तो is it good? I said yes, it is good. Normally ये interpretation है कि अगर 2:1 से ज्यादा है तो it is good. 3.5:1, very good. So, but there is a possibility that in that 3.5:1 ratio, if a large part of my current assets are in the form of inventory, or they are in the form of accounts receivable, a huge amount, it means some other thing is bad. That means I have a high current ratio, which is normally supposed to be good. But since I have a large amount of inventory, it means that I'm not able to sell my goods. And because of that, my inventory is piling up. And also that I may be having some obsolete stock, which I'm not able to sell, old stock, which I'm not able to sell. And as a result, my current assets are more. So current assets being more is not always a good sign. Current assets, if they are more, but they are more in the form of, we can say, liquid assets like cash, okay, and short-term investments, then it is good. And we have less of inventory, we have less of accounts receivable, or a medium amount of accounts receivable and inventory. That is good. On the other hand, you have to compare this particular ratio with a ratio called as inventory turnover ratio. So current ratio, we have to compare with inventory turnover ratio. Inventory turnover ratio tells you how many times we are able to sell the goods in the market, right? So if your inventory turnover ratio is high, which means that you are selling goods in the market quite frequently. That means there are no obsolete stock in your inventory. All the items are good. You are able to sell more frequently in the market. Goods are saleable. You are able to sell. Then a high current ratio is good. So a high current ratio combined with a high inventory turnover ratio is always good. So you always have to interpret ratios in combination. दो ratios कम से कम लेके फिर अपना एक conclusion निकाल सकते हैं. क्योंकि अगर एक ही रेशियो निकालेंगे तो हो सकता है कि उसमें गलती हो जाए, right? So there is a possibility that I may be wrong in my interpretation if I take only one ratio and interpret that ratio. Okay. So this is what is important at the outset. I'm telling you, beginning of the topic, that this is going to be something which we have to take care of. Okay. After that, when we come to the topic as such, we have to see what is the first try to understand what is the format of the revenue statement, what is the format of the balance sheet, vertical format as they normally give us, and which part is what. Okay. There are a number of ratios that we need to study, but I will tell you one thing. I will tell you the easiest way of remembering the ratios. As far as the remembering the ratios are concerned, how to remember the ratios, how to understand the ratios. क्योंकि मगअप करने की जरूरत नहीं है. You have to understand the ratios. Automatically, it will register in your mind. Simple ratios like current ratio, liquid ratio, we have already done. And now there will be some more ratios that are going to come, like gearing ratios क्या है, operating ratios क्या है, profitability ratios क्या है. So we have to know each category of it, right? So first, let us take into consideration the statement of profit or loss, and then I'll come to the statement of balance sheet. In the profit and loss account statement, normally ऐसा statement दिया होगा exam में, where you start with revenue, you have cost of sales or cost of goods sold. Revenue is sales. Sales minus cost of goods sold will give you the gross profit. From the gross profit, you minus your distribution cost, your administration cost. These two items are called as operating expenses. तो ये दो जो item है, that is your distribution cost and your administration expenses, they are nothing but your operating expenses. Operating cost अगर है, the term is not operating expense. अगर operating cost बोला है, तो operating cost is cost of sales plus distribution cost plus administration cost. Okay, there is a difference in operating expenses and operating cost. Operating expenses में सिर्फ दो item है, selling and distribution and administrative expenses. Operating cost में I will have cost of sales plus distribution plus administration expense. Okay. Then from gross profit, when you minus the operating expenses, you get operating profit. Operating profit के बाद non-operating items है. Non-operating items like interest paid. Interest paid is paid on what? Interest paid is paid on loan. Okay, अगर आपने लोन लिया है, तो लोन के ऊपर जो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट होता है, that is not a part of my manufacturing activity. That is not a part of my selling activity. It is a financing activity. So interest that is going to be paid, it is a financing activity, non-operating. तो operating profit के बाद आएगा. Interest received is a non-operating income. वो भी operating profit के बाद आएगा. Rent received, non-operating, right? So rent received, interest received, dividend received on the investments, all this will be non-operating. Operating profit के बाद आएगा. Then we calculate profit before taxation minus the taxation. Normally this is given as a percentage. Minus the taxation, you will get profit after taxation. Then this is ordinary dividends paid. ये जो है, ये paid है. Okay. So when we talk about ordinary dividends here, it is the dividend that we are paying. Okay. So I'll just write here paid. Dividend that is paid is called as operating ordinary dividends. Ordinary मतलब equity shares का dividend. Okay. So when you have dividends received, it is a non-operating income. Dividends received इधर आएगा. Okay. Operating profit के बाद आएगा dividends received. Fine. Dividends paid on ordinary shares, on preference shares, all that will come over here after taxation. Okay. Then you have retained profit for the year. Then profit and loss brought forward. Last year का profit and loss account, उसका balance brought forward. And then you have the profit and loss carried forward. ये साल का closing balance after taking into account all the current year's profit and the last year's profit. Yes, Arya.
So can you repeat the point for the dividends that you mentioned?
Dividend paid is a part and parcel of financing part, so it is going to come after tax. And ये जो dividend paid है, it is going to be dividend paid on the share capital, that is ordinary shares or preference shares. Okay.
Okay.
Received जो है, dividend received is a part and parcel of non-operating income, because dividend received will be received on your investment. Dividend received will be received on your investment. Investment is non-operating. So in that case, it will be coming as a part of your non-operating income.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Now, if they ask us in the formulas, we will require something called as EBIT. Okay. We will require something called as EBIT. So ये जो operating profit है ना इधर, that is nothing but EBIT. What is EBIT? Earnings before interest and tax. So when I have operating profit, another name for operating profit is EBIT. Okay. So EBIT is nothing but earnings before interest and tax. EBIT is nothing but your operating profit. Okay. So whether you call it as operating profit or whether you call it as EBIT, it is one and the same. Fine. So another term, because now names will differ in the formula. Formula में जब जाते हो तो names may differ. So operating profit या EBIT, right? Earnings before interest and tax, or PBIT, profit before interest and tax. It is all one and the same. Fine. So we have to know that it is not only what is the important part over here in the financial statement that we have to know, but alternative names of that, because alternative, you can see here, ये जो है ये format Kaplan material में ही दिया है. It is not my format. It is there in the standard textbook. But formulas में जब apply करते हैं तो उसका नाम कभी-कभी बदल जाता है. So it is sometimes used as operating profit, sometimes it is called as EBIT, sometimes it is called as profit before interest and tax. अलग-अलग नाम है. But we have to know which part of the statement we are referring to. Right? Now, let us come to the balance sheet part. All this is there in your Kaplan material, nothing to copy it on as such. Balance sheet में normally क्या होता है कि they will be giving you 2 years balance sheet, current year का और previous year का. Now order of that may change. तो ये columns को ध्यान से देखना कि first year, previous year किधर है और current year किधर है. Now in this particular case, this is the previous year, X5, X6 is the current year. Okay, so that is very important. So you may be asked to calculate for both the years, or you may be asked to calculate only for current year. और ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि you are asked to calculate for current year and previous year and compare करके interpretation लिखने का. Okay, so that is also possible. So non-current assets are fixed assets. You are having a current assets made up of 3 items: inventory, receivables, cash and cash equivalents. तो अगर अपने को current assets चाहिए तो we will have to take the total of these three: 1200, 400, 1600 plus 100, 17,700. So current assets का मतलब these 3 items which come under current assets. Then you have ordinary share capital, which is ordinary share capital मतलब equity share capital. 50 cent का shares है, 50 cent का shares है. $1 is equal to 100 cents. $1 is equal to 100 cents. Exactly the same way as 1 rupee is equal to 100 paise. So 50 cents का मतलब $0.5. How do you write 50 cents? It is $0.5. Okay. So if I want to know how many shares are there, number of shares, किसी फॉर्मूला में अपने को नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स चाहिए. अभी ये जो फिगर्स दिया है ऊपर दिया होगा इधर, इट इज गिवन ऑल इन थाउजेंड्स. ओके, इट इज ऑल गिवन इन थाउजेंड्स. तो 1200 का मतलब है 1,200,000. इसके बाद 3 जीरो आएगा, राइट? सो 1,200,000. सो ऑन द कैलसी आई विल टेक 1,200,000. One second. So I will have on the calci 1,200,000 divided by 0.5. So that will give me 2.4 million shares. Number of shares, 2.4 million shares, 2,400,000 shares. So where we want number of shares, क्या करना चाहिए? शेयर कैपिटल जो है उसको लेके इधर जो पर वैल्यू शेयर दिया रहेगा उससे डिवाइड कर देगा. इफ इट इज गिवन एज $10 डिवाइड बाय 10, यहाँ पर 50 सेंट्स लिखा है, C stands for cents, तो you have to divide by 0.5 dollars, so that you will get as 2.4 million shares. अच्छा, लास्ट ईयर कितना था? लास्ट ईयर 500,000 was the capital. 500,000 was the capital. So how many shares are there last year? 500,000 divided by, I will be 0.5. So there were 1 million shares last year. Last year there were 1 million shares. This year there are 2.4 million shares. Matlab, this year we have made a fresh issue of 1.4 million shares. Okay. So first let us get accustomed to all these things from the statement of financial position or statement of profit or loss, because we require these things to be used in the formulas. Then we have share premium. Share premium also called as securities premium. तो securities premium देख के, word देख के डरना मत. Premium, share premium and securities premium is one and the same. Okay. Then we have reserves, that is reserves and surplus. Reserves का मतलब reserves and surplus. This includes your profit and loss account का balance. This includes your profit and loss account का balance. Simply stated, अगर last year 100,000 था और current year 200,000 है, so there is an increase in the reserves by 100,000. So we assume that the increase is because of current year's profit. We assume that the increase is because of current year's profit. ये बराबर है कि नहीं है वो देखने के लिए जरा प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस में चलते. लास्ट ईयर का क्लोजिंग बैलेंस ऑफ रिजर्व्स वाज 100. करंट ईयर का क्लोजिंग बैलेंस ऑफ रिजर्व्स इज 200. तो अगर इधर देखो तो उसका रिकंसिलेशन हुआ है. इधर देखो, करंट ईयर का जो प्रॉफिट है वो $100,000 है. ये लास्ट ईयर का प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस ब्रॉट फॉरवर्ड है. ब्रॉट फॉरवर्ड मींस ब्रॉट फॉरवर्ड फ्रॉम लास्ट ईयर. तो लास्ट ईयर $100 का रिजर्व्स था, वो ऐड किया है इसको. करंट ईयर का प्रॉफिट $100,000 है. लास्ट ईयर में क्लोजिंग बैलेंस वाज 100,000 व्हिच नाउ बिकम्स ओपनिंग बैलेंस. तो लास्ट ईयर का 100 और ये साल का 100 मिला के करंट ईयर का $200,000 should be there in your balance sheet, right? So in your balance sheet, you are having this $200,000 coming from where? It is last year's opening balance plus current year's 100,000 equals to closing balance of current year. Okay, so that is your reserves. Then you have 10% loan notes. How to interpret this? Last year 600,000 था, current year 1 million है. So that means we have made additional borrowings. Loan notes matlab borrowings. We have made additional borrowings during the year of $400,000. Okay. Current liabilities में सिर्फ दो item है, loans and other borrowings and other payables. Other payables is your trade payables. So if I want current liabilities, I have to take the total of these two. Okay. Any questions on this? So before you start also, when you're studying, before you start with the ratios topic, you have to just first look at the balance sheet, look at the profit and loss account format, and then start with the formulas. Okay, what are the ratios that we are normally having? Categories of ratios. Now see here, after the profit and loss account, they have given some details. These details are important for us. For example, share price is given to us. Share price जो balance sheet में दिया है, that is a nominal value. Face value 50 cents, $0.5. Face value, nominal value. ठीक है, ये जो दिया है 1.3 and 1.26, it's a market value. प्राइस दिया है शेयर प्राइस, तो शेयर प्राइस का मतलब क्या? शेयर प्राइस का मतलब इट इज नथिंग बट द मार्केट वैल्यू दैट दे हैव गिवन. ओके, तो शेयर प्राइस इज द मार्केट प्राइस और द मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ द शेयर्स. मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ लोन नोट्स, जो बोरोइंग्स लिया है और जो एग्रीमेंट साइन किया है, उसका जो वैल्यू है वो 130,000 and 120,000. इंडस्ट्री इंफॉर्मेशन इज गिवन. Normally, this will be the type of information given to you in the exam also. The industry information is given. Industry ka PE ratio. You will see what is the PE ratio, the price earning ratio. Industry average growth in EPS. EPS is earning per share. Industry average of ROE, that is returns on equity. Why the industry figures are given? So that you can compare your company figures with the industry figures. Are you performing better than the industry or are you performing worse than the industry? Okay, इंडस्ट्री में बाकी सब कंपनी का परफॉर्मेंस अपने कंपनी से अच्छा है या we are performing better than all other companies in the same industry. So for that comparison and interpretation, they give you the industry figures. Instead of industry figures, what else they can give? They can give you the competitors figures. कि आपका जो कॉम्पिटिटर है, दिस सो एंड सो कंपनी इज योर कॉम्पिटिटर, एंड ये कॉम्पिटिटर्स का फिगर्स है which you need to compare with yourself to find out whether your company is performing better than the competitor or your competitor is performing better than you. ठीक है, so comparison is always going to be a part of your case study questions if ratios come. Now, classification of ratios. All the ratios, we have about 25-30 of them, but you can avoid studying all of them because simple things like gross profit ratio, ये तो अपने को मालूम है, gross profit upon sales into earnings, net profit ratio, net profit upon sales into earnings, ये सब अपने को मालूम है, तो डरने की बात नहीं. तो 25-30 फॉर्मूलास है, उसमें रियली यू हैव टू स्टडी जस्ट अ फ्यू ऑफ देम. वो भी स्टडीज मतलब व्हाट, यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि रेशियोज ये क्या डिपिक्ट करता है, ये क्या रिप्रेजेंट करता है. तो वंस यू अंडरस्टैंड कि व्हाट द रेशियोज रिप्रेजेंट, वो फॉर्मूलास अपने आप आ जाए. You don't have to mug up the formulas, right? So we classify the ratios into 4 categories: profitability and return ratios. Profitability ratios like gross profit ratio, net profit ratio, operating profit ratio. Returns ratio is also a form of profit. लेकिन profitability और return ratios में फर्क क्या है? Profitability I'm talking from trading point of view. कि सेल हुआ तो उसके हिसाब से, सेल्स के हिसाब से, रेवेन्यू के हिसाब से प्रॉफिट कितना हुआ. रिटर्न्स अगर शब्द में यूज करता हूं तो रिटर्न्स का मतलब क्या है? रिटर्न्स का मतलब ये है कि रिटर्न्स ऑन माय इन्वेस्टमेंट. मैंने जो शेयर कैपिटल में इन्वेस्ट किया है तो उसका रिटर्न्स क्या है? टोटल कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड इन द बिजनेस, शेयर होल्डर्स फंड्स प्लस बोरोड फंड्स, उसका रिटर्न्स क्या है? ठीक है, सो प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी एंड रिटर्न्स. सेकेंड कैटेगरी इज डेट एंड गियरिंग. हमेशा याद रखना, आई हैव टोल्ड यू दिस बिफोर आल्सो व्हेन वी आर डूइंग कैपिटल स्ट्रक्चर. गियरिंग का मतलब डेट. ऐसे कंपनी इज अ गियर्ड कंपनी मींस दैट कंपनी हैज गॉट डेट. बोरोइंग्स, अ कंपनी इज एन अनगियर्ड कंपनी, मतलब उस कंपनी में बोरोइंग्स नहीं है, राइट? सो गियरिंग ऑलवेज रिफर्स टू डेट. Debt and gearing both go together. Third is liquidity ratios. Are we able to meet our short-term obligations without any problems? liquidity ratios. Last is investor ratios. From the investor's point of view, when they want to invest in a company, they want to check some ratios for their purpose, for their investment purpose. Those ratios, they are called as investor ratios. Okay? So let us see each category. We start with profitability and returns. The first ratio that we come across here is returns on capital employed. I'm telling you now, very frankly, I'm telling you. अगर ratios को समझो, there is no need to mug up the ratios. Returns on capital employed. तो पहले सोचो कि capital employed का मतलब क्या है? Capital employed का मतलब है shareholders funds plus borrowed funds. Capital employed. किस किसने कैपिटल इन्वेस्ट किया है बिजनेस में? ओनर ने इन्वेस्ट किया है. क्या इन्वेस्ट किया है? इन व्हाट फॉर्म? शेयर कैपिटल. आउटसाइडर ने इन्वेस्ट किया है इन व्हाट फॉर्म? बोरोड फंड्स. आई मस्ट हैव बोरोड फ्रॉम बैंक्स. आई मस्ट हैव बोरोड फ्रॉम फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस. करेक्ट. आई मस्ट हैव बोरोड फ्रॉम द पब्लिक इन द फॉर्म ऑफ डिबेंचर्स, बॉन्ड्स. तो दोनों को मिला के इस कैपिटल तो shareholders funds plus borrowed funds is capital. Well, you have to understand the balance sheet. Vertical form mein or horizontal form, whichever you can recorrect, you can use that particular format. For example, let us say, you have to be smart in the sense that when we are talking about going for a professional exam, smartness is sometimes much better than रट्टा मारने का जो होता है ना. So let us assume that we have a balance sheet. The balance sheet में asset side पे you have non-current asset, that is fixed asset. You have current asset. You have share capital. You have reserves and surplus. You have long-term liability. Okay, that is borrowed funds. And you have current liabilities. Balance sheet tally होता है, correct? Balance sheet tally होता है. This is your liability side. So all assets are equal to all liabilities. Balance sheet tally होगा. So I say that total capital employed means owner's funds plus borrowed funds. Owner's funds क्या है? Share capital plus reserves are owner's funds. Borrowed funds क्या है? Long-term liabilities. ठीक है? Now, अगर share capital नहीं है, अगर reserves and surplus नहीं है, अगर long-term liabilities also are not given in the problem, तीनों चीज नहीं दिया है क्वेश्चन में, तो कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड कैसे कैलकुलेट करेंगे? Will we write note to examiner ki boss, you have not given us capital invested by shareholders and outsiders, so I cannot calculate formula, I cannot calculate the answer, so I should get benefit of doubt. आपने गलती किया है, आपने नहीं दिया है, तो मुझे मार्क्स मिलना चाहिए फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट. ऐसा बोलेंगे एग्जामिनर? नहीं ना. तो अभी एग्जामिनर को when you are having such a balance sheet, you have to know कि बैलेंस शीट तो टैली होता है ना. So if these items are not given, the total of these three items should be equal to non-current assets plus current assets minus current liabilities. अगर ये तीन आइटम नहीं है तो वो तीन आइटम तो होगा. तो वो तीन आइटम अगर है तो we still can calculate the capital employed. So shareholders funds plus borrowed funds is one way of arriving at capital employed. नहीं दिया है तो फिक्स्ड एसेट प्लस करंट एसेट माइनस करंट लायबिलिटी विल बी आल्सो कैपिटल. आखिर में बैलेंस शीट तो टैली होना है ना. तो वेदर यू आर गोइंग बाय लायबिलिटी साइड अप्रोच और द एसेट साइड अप्रोच should give you the same answer. It is like saying कि I am asking you for a balance sheet total. I don't give you the liability side only. I give you only fixed asset and current asset, and I ask you what is the total of balance sheet liability side. Will you tell me, sir, liability side में कुछ नहीं दिया है तो हम लोग कैलकुलेट नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन एसेट साइड का बैलेंस टोटल निकाल के दे सकते हैं, ऐसा बोलेंगे क्या? नहीं ना. We are intelligent enough to know that assets and liabilities are equal balance sheet. तो जो भी एसेट का बैलेंस होगा that total will be the total of liability side also. Correct. So likewise, अगर शेयर कैपिटल रिजर्व्स और लॉन्ग टर्म लाइबिलिटीज नहीं दिया है तो द नेक्स्ट ऑप्शन इज टेक फिक्स्ड एसेट प्लस करंट एसेट माइनस करंट लाइबिलिटी. भाई माइनस करंट लाइबिलिटी वो ऑपोजिट साइड पे है, जो सेम साइड पे है उसको ऐड करने का, जो ऑपोजिट साइड पे है उसको माइनस करने का. ठीक है, राइट. सो दिस इज योर द द थिंग्स दैट इफ इट इज नॉट गिवन, इफ द डेटा इज नॉट गिवन, क्या करने का. If the data is not given, try to find out in what other way can I calculate the same values. So capital employed हो गया, returns on capital employed. Let us come back to the revenue statement. बहुत important है. जो ऐसा समझो, how you have to understand the ratios, how you have to understand the financial statements. ये टॉपिक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, नॉट ओनली फॉर नाउ बट प्रैक्टिकल पर्पस ऑल्सो. इंटरव्यूज के लिए जाते हो, जब प्लेसमेंट के टाइम पे इंटरव्यूज आता है एंड यू आर सेइंग दैट आई एम एन एक्सपर्ट इन अकाउंट्स. एक स्टूडेंट आया था कल उसका पेरेंट्स के साथ, एंड स्टूडेंट सेड आई नो आई वांट टू डू सीएफए. तो आई सेड व्हाई. सेड पेरेंट्स सेड बच्चे को फाइनेंस में इंटरेस्ट है. आई सेड ठीक है, फाइनेंस में इंटरेस्ट है. तो आई आस्क्ड द स्टूडेंट कि व्हाट इज फाइनेंस. ही सेड प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट, बैलेंस शीट, ये फाइनेंस है. आई सेड ये फाइनेंस नहीं है, ये अकाउंट्स है. तो कभी कभी अपने को गलत फहमी रहती है कि अकाउंट्स क्या है, फाइनेंस क्या है. जो बैलेंस शीट और प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट है वो अकाउंट्स है. उसको फाइनल अकाउंट्स करने को बहुत अच्छा लगता है, बैलेंस शीट टैली होते समय उसको अच्छा लगता है. तो ही इज गुड इन अकाउंट्स बिकॉज इफ ही इज इंटरेस्टेड इन प्रिपेयरिंग फाइनल अकाउंट्स, ही इज गुड इन अकाउंट्स. When will he be good in finance? When he has interest in analyzing that financial statement. जब बैलेंस शीट को एनालाइज करेंगे विद द हेल्प ऑफ रेशियोज, विद द हेल्प ऑफ कंपैरेटिव स्टेटमेंट्स, देन वी से दैट अच्छा द स्टूडेंट इज इंटरेस्टेड इन फाइनेंस, राइट. तो फाइनेंस एंड अकाउंट्स दे आर टू डिफरेंट थिंग्स, बट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड, ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग होना चाहिए कि इवन इन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स जो है, जो फाइनेंस का कॉन्सेप्ट है, the deeper meaning of all these figures like gross profit क्या है, EBIT क्या है, net profit after tax क्या है, ये समझने के लिए we have to be a little bit smarter. That is why finance is required to understand the financial statements. ठीक है, preparing up to preparing the financial statements वो accounts. उसके बाद जो financial statements ready होके आते हैं, profit और loss, balance sheet, उसको जो समझने का होता है, that understanding that is required, that is finance, and you are doing now financial management. तो प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट का जो हिस्सा है, हर हिस्सा है अपने को समझने का है कि उसका मतलब क्या है. ये जो ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट है ना, ईबीआईटी, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है. अगर इसको हम देखते हैं तो ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट लिखा है सर ने, ईबीआईटी भी लिखा है. अभी ईबीआईटी का मतलब है अर्निंग्स बिफोर इंटरेस्ट, बिफोर टैक्स and before dividends also. Correct ना? It is the profit that I'm having before I pay dividends to my shareholders. Shareholder का dividend किधर आता है? इधर आता है, ordinary dividends. इसके बाद आता है. Interest किधर आता है? इसके बाद आता है. Tax किधर आता है? इसके बाद आता है. तो ये जो profit है, operating profit, ये profit है before I pay interest, before I pay tax, and before I pay dividends to shareholders. समझ में आया? अभी इसको और कैसे समझने का है. When capital is invested in the business, I am the owner of the business. मैंने 10 रुपया लगा दिया बिजनेस में, मैंने आपसे ₹5 लिया, बोरो किया और वो भी लगा दिया तो ₹15 इन्वेस्टमेंट हो गया, राइट? तो अगर ₹15 इन्वेस्ट हो गया है, वो ₹15 इन्वेस्ट करके जो प्रॉफिट निकलेगा वो टोटल हमारे इन्वेस्टमेंट का प्रॉफिट, आपका और मेरा जो इन्वेस्टमेंट है ₹15 का, उसका प्रॉफिट, ठीक है? अभी ना मैंने आपको इंटरेस्ट दिया है, ना मैंने अपना डिविडेंड लिया है। उस प्रॉफिट से जो हम लोगों ने ₹15 लगा दिया था बिजनेस में, उसमें से ₹5 का प्रॉफिट आया, तो आई हैव टू पे योर इंटरेस्ट आउट ऑफ दैट, आई हैव टू टेक माई डिविडेंड आउट ऑफ दैट। तो ये जो प्रॉफिट है, जो ₹5 है, इट इज बिफोर इंटरेस्ट इज पेड टू यू एंड बिफोर इंटरेस्ट इज पेड टू मी, सो दैट इज द रिटर्न्स ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड। और वो क्या है? वो ईबीआईटी है, वो ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट है, ठीक है? सो कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड का जो रिटर्न्स है, व्हेन बोथ द कैपिटल्स आर इन्वेस्टेड एंड नथिंग इज पेड टू आइदर ऑफ देम, nothing is paid as interest, nothing is paid as dividend, वो profit is the profit on total capital employed and that is operating profit. तो फॉर्मूला आ गया, रिटर्न्स ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड मालूम है कि इट इज माय टोटल ऑफ शेयर होल्डर्स फंड्स प्लस बोरोड फंड्स, रिटर्न्स आ गया, वो ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट है, करेक्ट? सो आई कैन मेक वन मोर एडिशन, इधर जो है आई कैन मेक वन मोर एडिशन एंड आई विल मेक दैट एडिशन एज ROCE, कि ये मेरा रिटर्न्स ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड भी है, ओके? ईबीआईटी जो है ये मेरा रिटर्न्स ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड भी है, बिकॉज फ्रॉम हियर आई विल गेट माय रिटर्न्स ऑन कैपिटल, टोटल कैपिटल। अच्छा, इसमें से प्रॉफिट में से जब मैं इंटरेस्ट पे करता हूं ना, तो आपका अमाउंट का सेटलमेंट हो जाता है। आपने कंट्रीब्यूट किया था, मैंने आपसे उधार लिया था ₹5, तो उसके ऊपर मैंने आपको इंटरेस्ट बोला था कि आई विल पे यू 10% और 20% इंटरेस्ट, सो आई पे यू 20% इंटरेस्ट, तो ₹5 में से मैं आपका 20% इंटरेस्ट दे देता हूँ ₹1। समझ में आ रहा है? आउट ऑफ द ₹5 प्रॉफिट दैट आई मेड, आई पे योर इंटरेस्ट फर्स्ट, कि ये लो भाई, मैंने आपसे बोरो किया था तो उसका इंटरेस्ट है ₹1, ले लो, तो आपका सेटलमेंट हो गया। तो जो ₹4 जो बचा है ना, वो किसका है? वो किसका है? वो मेरा है,
इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर।
शेयर होल्डर्स का है। तो शेयर होल्डर्स के प्रॉफिट में से आई विल पे फर्स्ट टैक्स, करेक्ट? आई विल फर्स्ट पे टैक्स, लेट अस से टैक्सेस आउट ऑफ ₹4 ₹1 टैक्स में गया, तो बाकी का ₹3 इज व्हाट इज माय प्रॉफिट, करेक्ट? किसका प्रॉफिट? शेयर होल्डर्स का प्रॉफिट। किसका प्रॉफिट? इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स एंड प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स का प्रॉफिट, बिकॉज दो शेयर होल्डर्स है, इक्विटी एंड प्रेफरेंस। Acha. Now, if preference share capital is not there in the company, I am the only shareholder, equity shareholder. That entire ₹3 belongs to me. Belongs to me. It is my returns on equity. So, what is returns on equity? Returns on equity is nothing but profit after tax. Returns on shareholders' funds. Returns on shareholders' funds is profit after tax. जो प्रॉफिट शेयर होल्डर के लिए बचा है, आफ्टर पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स, आफ्टर पेमेंट ऑफ ऑल एक्सपेंसेस, आफ्टर पेमेंट ऑफ आउटसाइडर्स इंटरेस्ट ऑल्सो, जो बचा प्रॉफिट है वो रिटर्न्स ऑन इक्विटी, वो फॉर्मूलास में देखेंगे अभी। एंड इफ देयर आर प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स ऑल्सो, देन इट इज प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स माइनस द प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स डिविडेंड, क्योंकि पहले उनका डिविडेंड भी सेटल करने का है, तो आई विल सेटल देयर डिविडेंड ऑल्सो, जो बचा है वो मेरा है, इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर। तो सबका प्रॉफिट कितना है? टोटल कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड के ऊपर प्रॉफिट कौन सा है? ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट, ईपीआई। शेयर होल्डर्स के लिए जो प्रॉफिट बचा है वो क्या है? नेट प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स। इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स के लिए जो प्रॉफिट बचा क्या है? नेट प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स, आफ्टर पेमेंट ऑफ प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स। ऐसे याद रखो, फॉर्मूलाज पढ़ने की जरूरत ही नहीं, अपने आप आएगा फॉर्मूला। 3 फॉर्मूला से भी पढ़ा है, यू कैन चेक इट। रिटर्न्स ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड, इट इज ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट और ईबीआईटी अपॉन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड इनटू 100. What is capital employed? Shareholders funds plus borrowed funds. Second formula you have learned just now, returns on equity. Returns on equity is net profit after tax minus preference dividend divided by equity shareholders funds. Returns on shareholders funds is net profit after tax, because shareholder matlab equity plus preference. Returns on shareholders funds is net profit after tax divided by total shareholders funds, मतलब इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल प्लस प्रेफरेंस शेयर कैपिटल प्लस द रिजर्व्स इनटू 100. 3 फॉर्मूला अभी बैठे बैठे हो गया. गॉट इट? सो अगर प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस को समझो, दैट इज फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट. जो प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस बनाता है वो इसको समझता नहीं, जैसे बना के छोड़ देता है, फॉर्मेट में डाल के वो फॉर्मेट में छोड़ देता है. बट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ईबीआईटी का मतलब इट इज माय टोटल प्रॉफिट अर्नड ऑन टोटल कैपिटल इन्वेस्टेड. Total capital invested is returns on capital employed. So ROC is operating profit. Operating profit upon capital employed into 100. उसमें से पहले मैं इंटरेस्ट पे करता हूँ, बाहर वाले का पहले पेमेंट करना चाहिए, तो इंटरेस्ट पे करता हूँ, बाहर वाले का गवर्नमेंट का टैक्स पेमेंट करना चाहिए. जो बचेगा वो ओनर्स का है. ओनर्स कौन है? शेयर होल्डर्स है. तो शेयर होल्डर्स फंड्स का रिटर्न्स क्या है? एनपीएटी, नेट प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स अपॉन शेयर होल्डर्स फंड्स. But I want specifically returns on equity shareholders funds. Then net profit after tax minus preference dividend, क्योंकि वो भी बाहर वाला है, उसको भी पेमेंट करेंगे. जो बचा वो मेरा एनपीएटी माइनस प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड डिवाइडेड बाय इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल, मेरा कैपिटल इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल प्लस रिजर्व्स इनटू 100. बराबर. सो 3 फॉर्मूलास आ गए अभी. So if you look at this now, returns on capital employed, profit before interest and tax, उनके wordings पे मत जाओ. Understand what is the formula. EBIT or PBIT upon capital employed into 100. PBIT or EBIT is equal to operating profit. Capital employed, there are 2 ways. This is the liability side approach I told you. This is the asset side approach I told you. So either you can take share capital plus reserves plus borrowed funds, or if that is not given, non-current asset, that is fixed asset plus current asset minus current asset. Okay. Disadvantage क्या है? Uses the profit which is not directly linked to the objective of maximizing shareholders funds. Fine. Okay. So that is your first formula, returns on capital employed. Let us come to this breakup. I'll tell you afterwards. This is a nice, beautiful story. Second is returns on equity. मैंने बोला ना, रिटर्न्स ऑन इक्विटी का मतलब इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर का इन्वेस्टमेंट पे कितना प्रॉफिट आया, कितना रिटर्न्स आया. सो इट इज प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स आफ्टर प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड. सो नेट प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स माइनस प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड डिवाइडेड बाय इक्विटी, मतलब इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल प्लस रिजर्व्स एंड सरप्लस इनटू 100. वो सेम फॉर्मूला इधर है. प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स एंड प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड्स divided by ordinary share capital, मतलब equity share capital plus reserves into 100. ठीक है. Now we come to profit margins. बोला था ना प्रॉफिट एंड रिटर्न्स, तो वो रिटर्न्स हो गया. अभी प्रॉफिट मार्जिन्स. ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट रेशियो, ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट अपॉन रेवेन्यू. रेवेन्यू हमेशा नेट होता है. एग्जाम में क्या बोलते हैं देखो, जो बुक में है दे गिव यू सेल्स, एग्जाम में है they give you sales, less sales returns, less trade discount, ये सब प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट करके देते हैं। तो अपने को क्या पढ़ना चाहिए इसमें से कि रेवेन्यू मतलब नेट रेवेन्यू, मतलब सेल्स माइनस द ट्रेड डिस्काउंट माइनस द सेल्स रिटर्न्स, दैट विल बी योर नेट सेल्स। तो रेवेन्यू हमेशा नेट होता है आफ्टर ऑल एडजस्टमेंट्स। So gross profit margin is gross profit upon net revenue into 100. Operating profit margin is operating profit. Again, operating profit is EBIT upon net revenue into 100. ऐसे ही पढ़ा करो net revenue, net revenue. तो प्रॉब्लम में कुछ भी दिया जाए, you know that it is net revenue. Sales minus sales returns if it is given. If it is not given, then sales. Okay. तो ये हो गया profit margin, gross profit and operating profit. Debt and gearing ratios. इसमें नेट प्रॉफिट मार्जिन भी आ सकता है। नेट प्रॉफिट मार्जिन इफ दे आस्क यू, यू हैव टू कैलकुलेट, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। नेट प्रॉफिट मार्जिन इफ दे आस्क यू, यू हैव टू गिव देम टू फिगर्स। नेट प्रॉफिट बिफोर टैक्स अपॉन नेट रेवेन्यू इनटू 100, नेट प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स अपॉन नेट रेवेन्यू इनटू 100। बिफोर टैक्स आफ्टर टैक्स दोनों कैलकुलेट करके दोनों देने का। डोंट गिव देम अ चांस टू डिडक्ट योर मार्क्स। हमेशा एग्जाम का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या होना चाहिए? Not to score 60%, not to score 90%, not to score 100%. Objective is that I will not allow the examiner to deduct even 1 mark of mine. ठीक है? Automatically that means you are aiming for 100%. Figures क्यों चाहिए? You write your answer in such a manner that examiner does not find any reason to deduct your marks. ये objective होना चाहिए. Because the moment the examiner gets reason to deduct your marks, वो बोलेगा कि yes, you have given profit after tax, net profit before tax का नहीं दिया है, कैलकुलेट करके दो, क्या है उसमें, half a second it will take, right? So net profit margin also comes along this net profit before tax upon revenue into 100, net profit after tax upon revenue into 100. ठीक है, fine. Coming to debt and gearing ratio. Now interesting things. Debt and gearing ratio. The first thing that is going to come here is interest coverage ratio. Interest coverage ratio. Forget the formula. Formula बाद में देखते हैं. पहले formula को समझते हैं. Interest coverage ratio. मतलब which part of profit helps me to pay my interest? Which part of profit helps me to pay my interest? Let us go back to the revenue statement. देखो, सब राज जो है ना, वो revenue statement format में छुपा है. वो format को समझो, सब राज का आंसर मिलेगा. Which part of the revenue statement has the profit which is out of which interest is paid? Interest किस में से पेमेंट किया जाता है? ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट में से या सेल्स में से? किस में से पेमेंट करते हैं इंटरेस्ट? टेल मी, फ्रॉम वेयर डू वी पे इंटरेस्ट? रेवेन्यू माइनस इंटरेस्ट करते हैं, बोलो.
EBIT से
फ्रॉम वेयर डू वी पे इंटरेस्ट? गार्गी, इंटरेस्ट कहां से पेमेंट करते हैं? आउट ऑफ विच प्रॉफिट डू वी पे इंटरेस्ट? आउट ऑफ विच फिगर डू वी पे इंटरेस्ट? कैन अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड आंसर. प्रीति, इंटरेस्ट किसमें से पेमेंट करते हैं?
operating
Operating profit, correct now? So interest is covered out of operating profit. Barabar? I can say that interest is covered out of operating profit. Out of operating profit, I am paying my interest. I am not paying interest out of gross profit. Gross profit तो बहुत ऊपर है. I am paying interest out of operating profit. Gross profit हो सकता है, लेकिन अगर operating profit नहीं हुआ, तो I will not be able to pay interest. So interest is paid out of gross profit, or interest is paid out of operating profit. Is paid out of operating profit. Gross profit say we pay distribution cost and administration expense. Interest is paid out of operating profit. Okay. Now, it means that my interest is paid out of operating profit. EBIT. Caroms खेलते हो तुम? Caroms खेलते हो? तो caroms खेलते समय क्वीन को डालते हो, to attack the queen you falls. क्वीन का कवर होता है ना? क्वीन का कवर होता है.
Yes.
You strike and then you get the queen's का cover also. तो क्वीन पहले जाता है, उसके ऊपर वो कवर आ जाता है. करेक्ट ना? Now, suppose in the winter you are going to a hill station. बहुत ठंड है. So you are covering yourself with blanket. तो आप ऊपर रहते हो और ब्लैंकेट नीचे रहता है, कि ब्लैंकेट ऊपर रहता है और आप नीचे रहते हो? How do you cover yourself? Do you sleep over the blanket and cover yourself?
Yes.
No. When you are covering yourself with blanket, that means the blanket is over you. Cover ऊपर होता है, हम लोग नीचे होते हैं. We cover ourselves with the blanket, so the blanket is over us. तो जो भी कवर होता है वो ऊपर होना चाहिए. अभी इंटरेस्ट का कवर क्या है? ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट है, तो वो भी ऊपर होना चाहिए, और जो कवर होता है वो नीचे होना चाहिए. तो ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट विल बी इन द न्यूमरेटर एंड कवर इंटरेस्ट विल बी इन द डिनोमिनेटर. डेट इंटरेस्ट जो है वो डिनोमिनेटर में रहेगा, और उसका जो कवर है ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट वो न्यूमरेटर में रहेगा. वो मेरा फॉर्मूला है. I don't need to study the formula. I don't need to look at the formula. ऐसे समझ ले. I told you ना, all my ACCA students, I have never told them to mug up the formulas. मैं ऐसे ही पढ़ाता हूँ. Interest coverage ratio. I'll tell you why I'm doing this. ये किया ना, examination में in this entire book there is one formula missing. There is one formula missing. I will tell you. And it came in the examination once, and my students, after the exam, they came and told me, sir, ये फॉर्मूला आपने नहीं पढ़ाया था, वो टेक्स्ट बुक में भी नहीं था. वी एग्री टू दैट, बट जो आपने मेथड यूज किया था एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए, वो बहुत अच्छा हो गया, बिकॉज वी आर एबल टू राइट द आंसर फॉर दैट. एंड दे टोल्ड मी द फॉर्मूला ऑफ दैट रेशियो व्हिच वाज नॉट देयर इन द बुक आल्सो. Because when you are studying by a particular method now, you don't require the formulas. When you study as per the, अगर फॉर्मूला रट्टा मारते हो तो थोड़ा भी मॉडिफिकेशन हो जाता है ना, तो देन टेंशन कम्स कि अरे नया फॉर्मूला आ गया, सर ने सिखाया है. फर्स्ट थिंग विल कम इनटू योर माइंड, सर डिड नॉट टीच अस. बाकी का सब बाद में आएगा. सर डिड नॉट टीच अस दिस फॉर्मूला, सो आई डोंट नो दिस फॉर्मूला. बाहर जाके सर को पहला बताते हैं कि पेपर इजी है, बाद में वो बाद में बताएंगे. पहले बताएंगे सर आपने हमको एक फॉर्मूला नहीं सिखाया. So if you are doing like that, then it is going to be problem for you. इसके लिए क्या करने का है? Whenever you are studying a particular formula, study by understanding the formula. अच्छा, जो फॉर्मूला आया था एग्जाम में, I will tell you. The formula that was asked in the examination was dividend coverage ratio. Not even that. Equity dividend coverage ratio. Two ratios are asked. Dividend coverage ratio and equity dividend coverage ratio. वो फॉर्मूला है ही नहीं बुक, कोई भी बुक में नहीं. स्टूडेंट ने दिमाग लगाया और आंसर लिखा. तुम लोग लगा सकते हो दिमाग और टेल मी द आंसर ऑफ दिस. डिविडेंड कवरेज रेशियो एंड इक्विटी डिविडेंड कवरेज रेशियो. बता सकते हो दोनों का फॉर्मूला क्या है? एनीवन? आर्या?
Sir, actually, dividend coverage ratio formula I've done already. So it is net profit after taxes divided by total dividends to shareholders.
Correct. Equity dividend coverage ratio. Yes, Arya. Equity dividend coverage ratio.
Yes, sir. Equity dividend coverage ratio is net income minus the preference dividends um, divided by equity stock dividends.
Correct. Absolutely right. देखना क्या है, लॉजिक क्या है, टोटल डिविडेंड कहां से पेमेंट होता है. ओके, टोटल डिविडेंड कहां से पेमेंट होता है. टोटल डिविडेंड इज पेड आउट ऑफ नेट प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स, एनपीएटी. आई टोल्ड यू ना, आफ्टर पेमेंट ऑफ ऑल एक्सपेंसेस द प्रॉफिट जो बचता है वो शेयर होल्डर्स का है. वो शेयर होल्डर्स का है. कौन से शेयर होल्डर्स? इक्विटी प्लस प्रेफरेंस, दोनों का है. दोनों का शेयर है इसमें. इन विच प्रॉफिट? एनपैट. So from where the total dividends, preference dividend and equity dividend will be paid from NPAT. So ऊपर रहेगा NPAT, नीचे रहेगा total dividend, equity dividend plus preference dividend. Equity dividend coverage ratio, out of which profits am I going to pay equity dividend? That profit which remains after payment of preference dividend. So NPAT minus preference dividend divided by equity dividend. हो गया formula. Coverage ratio. So that is how you have to remember. So dividend coverage ratio is not there, but still, if they ask you, you have to write the formula. So that is where your concept strong or weak that comes. To say कि it is not in the syllabus, out of syllabus question आ गया, it is not acceptable. Not acceptable. Some things are going to come in the examination which may not be there in your book as such, but you have to apply little bit of common sense, little bit of knowledge that you must have acquired during your studies, right? So normally students who are giving their ACCA exam are in the second or third year of their BCom or graduation. So that level of maturity is expected out of you guys, right? So dividend coverage ratio also now I have taught. So you should be well versed with that. Liquidity ratios are already done in the topic of working capital. Like we have done liquidity ratios like current ratio, quick ratio, stock to working, inventory turnover ratios, inventory to working capital ratios. So all these ratios we have already covered in the working capital management topic. Okay. Investor ratios. What is investor interested in? Investor जब investment करता है तो the first thing that is interested in is dividends. Dividends कहां से आते हैं? It comes from earnings. Okay. So from the dividend point of view, he will be interested with dividend per share. Dividend coverage. I told you no dividend coverage ratio. Dividend coverage. Dividend yield. Yesterday we were discussing. Yesterday or day before yesterday we were discussing on Sunday. Yield is what? Yield is the returns that I'm getting on my investment. Rate of return, rate of interest may be the same, but if your investment amount differs, you are purchasing at a higher value or a lower value, that is your investment. That return on your investment is your yield. From the earnings point of view, returns on equity, which we have already done. earning per share, and then P ratio. Earning per share is nothing but profit per share. Earning per share is nothing but profit per share. Earning per share is normally calculated for equity shareholders, never calculated for preference shareholders. I'll tell you the reason. See, these are things that you should know because that will simplify your understanding of ratios. Earning per share जो होता है never calculated for preference shareholders. It is always calculated for equity shareholders. So it is profit available for equity shareholders per share. मतलब profit available for equity shareholders divided by number of equity shares. मतलब profit available for equity shareholders का मतलब क्या है? NPAT, net profit after tax, after payment of preference dividend. So NPAT minus preference dividend divided by number of equity shares will give earning per share. Simple. Earning per share, profit per share. Profit किसका profit? Profit available for equity shareholders. Equity shareholders का profit क्या है? After payment of preference shareholders. So NPAT minus preference dividend. Per share I want. So divide by number of shares. Don't require to mug up all these things here. Come on. Profit after interest, after tax, and after preference dividend. So NPAT. This is your NPAT. NPAT minus preference dividend divided by number of ordinary shares in the issue. Right? Okay. Price earning ratio. Very important from practical point of view. हम लोग जो इन्वेस्टर्स है ना, जब कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, we first check the P ratio. P ratio is also called as P multiple. Instead of ratio, we call it as multiple. P multiple. PE ratio, price earning ratio. Formula is known to you. Price earning ratio, मतलब न्यूमरेटर में प्राइस रहेगा, डिनोमिनेटर में अर्निंग रहेगा. उसमें क्या पढ़ना है? प्राइस अर्निंग रेशियो, ऊपर प्राइस, नीचे अर्निंग्स. ऑटोमेटिक आना चाहिए. प्राइस मीन्स व्हाट? मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर. मैंने बोला था ना, प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट के नीचे वो दिया था, मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर. मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर डिवाइडेड बाय अर्निंग्स, अर्निंग्स पर शेयर, एमपीएस अपॉन ईपीएस. हो गया फॉर्मूला. अगर पर शेयर वैल्यू नहीं दिया है तो टोटल शेयर कैपिटल डिवाइडेड बाय टोटल अर्निंग्स. टोटल शेयर कैपिटल अपॉन टोटल अर्निंग्स. दैट इज योर पी रेशियो. अच्छा, पी रेशियो का मतलब क्या है? वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर इंटरप्रिटेशन, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ, फॉर इन्वेस्टर्स. मतलब ये है कि इफ यू सी इन द न्यूमरेटर नाउ, न्यूमरेटर में शेयर प्राइस है, मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर इज व्हाट द इन्वेस्टर इज विलिंग टू बाय द शेयर फॉर. द प्राइस एट विच इन्वेस्टर इज विलिंग टू बाय द शेयर फॉर, डिवाइडेड बाय अर्निंग पर शेयर. तो जब आप डिवाइड करते हो, यू विल गेट पर डॉलर वैल्यू. समझो, market price per share is $10. Earning per share is $2. So P ratio 10 divided by 2, it is 5. तो ये 5 का मतलब क्या है? Let us come to the Excel sheet. As I said, price earning ratio. P ratio is equal to market price per share upon earning per share. अब ये समझो, market price is $20. Earning per share is $2. So P ratio will come to 10 times. Or you can write it as 10:1. The other way of writing is 10:1. 10 is 1. 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 10 इसको कैसे इंटरप्रेट करें? 10 times मतलब an investor is willing to pay for one share of a company, willing to pay for one share of a company $10 for every $1 earned as revenue. Earnings per share है ना, divided by earnings per share. For every $1 of earnings, मतलब profit, for every $1 of profit, the investor is willing to pay 10 times the amount to purchase the share. Got it? So P ratio means that the investor is willing to pay X number of times per profit. Earnings means what? Profit. Per profit of the company. Per $1 profit of the company. Per dollar of profit of the company. Higher the ratio, the better it is. But not necessarily. You have to see what is the industry average. P ratio का industry average क्या है? If the industry average is 8 and your P ratio is 10, that means okay, your company's prospects are bright. Investor is willing to pay $10 for every $1 of profit that you are making. Very good. Company must be doing well. But industry का average जो है वो $8 है, 8 times है. So you are slightly overpriced maybe. Maybe you are slightly overpriced maybe. And in future, there is only one way that you will go, that is down. So that you come on par with the industry. You come on par with the industry. Because otherwise, industry का अगर 8 है और आपका अगर 10 है, तो your figure is an outlier. It's an outlier. Outlier in the sense that it is not a part of the group. It is external. It is out of the group. So normally everything should be within the group itself. अच्छा, मेरा अगर पी रेशियो 10 टाइम्स है और इंडस्ट्री का 15 टाइम्स है, तो इसका मतलब क्या होगा? तो इसका मतलब ये है कि इफ यू इन्वेस्ट इन द कंपनी इट विल बी गुड, बिकॉज फ्यूचर में इसका प्रोस्पेक्ट्स आर देयर टू क्लाइंब फ्रॉम 10 to 15 and become better, become more profitable. So I cannot say that a higher ratio is always good. I cannot say that a lower ratio is always bad, right? So correct interpretation of P ratio is required for the investor before investing. That is why industry average of the P ratio has to be taken into consideration, right? So P ratio is market price per share upon earning per share. Clear? I suppose I'm clear with this ratio. Fine. So price earning ratio आ गया. Dividend per share. Dividend per share. Total dividend divided by number of ordinary shares. Total dividend, that is equity dividend, divided by number of equity shares. Always EPS, DPS, ये सब जो है, it is purely calculated for equity shareholders. Never include the preference shareholders. Never include the preference shareholders. Because उनको फिक्स डिविडेंड मिलता है. ये सब हम लोग क्यों कैलकुलेट करते हैं? क्योंकि इक्विटी शेयरहोल्डर्स का डिविडेंड फिक्स नहीं है. करेक्ट ना? Equity shareholders don't have fixed rate of dividend. So we have to calculate all these things. Preference shareholders का fixed rate of dividend है. उनको compulsory dividend है. So we need not calculate all these things. Correct? So we say that dividend per share, it's the total equity dividend divided by total number of equity shares. Total equity dividend or total ordinary dividend divided by number of shares. DPS. DPS का मतलब dividend per share. Okay. Any difficulty? So yeah, dividend coverage, profit available for ordinary shares divided by dividend for the year. And in this, we have to know interim plus final. Interim dividend क्या होता है? Interim dividend is dividend paid in between the year. Normally, dividend is paid at the end of the year. But if you have dividend paid in between the year, it is called as interim dividend. अगर कंपनी के पास प्रॉफिट ज्यादा होता है, तो it does not wait for the year to end. It does not wait for the year to end. It will pay some amount of dividend in the middle of the year only, and balance amount it will pay at the end of the year. So when I say dividend for the equity shareholders, it will include interim dividend plus the final dividend. Okay. The higher the dividend coverage ratio, the better it is for the company, because you have that much more profits out of which you can pay the dividends to the shareholders. Dividend yield, yield जब आता है, हमेशा it is on market price. कल भी मैंने बोला था ना, फेस वैल्यू $100 होगा, लेकिन अगर मार्केट प्राइस कम है, यू रिमेंबर द एग्जांपल, लेट अस गो बैक. यील्ड का किधर दिखाया था, ये देखो, मार्केट वैल्यू अगर 1100 है, ये फेस वैल्यू. मार्केट वैल्यू अगर 1100 है, तो इट इज 100 अपॉन 1100, 9.08, ये यील्ड है. तो डिवाइड किससे किया था? डिवाइड किया था मार्केट प्राइस. मार्केट वैल्यू अगर 900 है, सो 100 अपॉन 900 डिवाइड किससे किया था? मार्केट प्राइस से. सो यील्ड जब कैलकुलेट करते हो, डिनोमिनेटर में 101% इट इज गोइंग टू बी मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर. सोचने का नहीं है. यील्ड का मतलब इट इज मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर. आंख बंद करके लिखने का. करेक्ट. डिविडेंड यील्ड अगर डिनोमिनेटर में मार्केट प्राइस पर शेयर है, तो न्यूमरेटर में क्या होगा? अरे भाई, हम लोग डिविडेंड यील्ड कैलकुलेट करेंगे, तो ऊपर डिविडेंड ही आएगा ना, अर्निंग्स थोड़ी आएगी. करेक्ट. ओके. This is the only ratio that you need to study. Total shareholder returns, that is TSR. This measures the returns to the investor by taking into account the dividend income and the capital growth. Okay. Total shareholder return. इसको भी पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, but it is a new ratio. शेयरहोल्डर जब शेयर्स में इन्वेस्ट करता है, शेयरहोल्डर जब शेयर्स में इन्वेस्ट करता है, तो उसको दो टाइप के रिटर्न्स आते हैं. एक तो रेगुलर रिटर्न्स है, जो डिविडेंड के तौर पर आता है. करेक्ट. एक वो रिटर्न्स है जो जिसको हम लोग कैपिटल एप्रिसिएशन बोलते हैं. कैपिटल एप्रिसिएशन मतलब, अगर समझो मैंने जनवरी में अडानी पावर का शेयर लिया, और तभी मेरा वैल्यू ऑफ शेयर वाज 160 रुपीज. 160 रुपीज, 160 रुपया था जनवरी में जब मैंने लिया था. 3 महीने के बाद, लेट अस से इन द मंथ ऑफ मार्च और फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ अप्रैल, when I check the market price of Adani Power का share, suppose it is 180. तो जनवरी में 160 था, अप्रैल फर्स्ट वीक में इट इज 180. तो उसमें कैपिटल एप्रिसिएशन हुआ है. वैल्यू ऑफ द मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ द शेयर हैज इंक्रीज्ड बाय 20 रुपीस. So that is capital appreciation. Now, if the shares are paying dividend in the month of March, say the company has paid 5 rupees per share as dividend. So मेरा total income कितना हुआ? If I sell the shares, I will get 180. I purchase for 160. I'm selling for 180. तो कैपिटल अप्रिसिएशन वो 20 रुपीज प्रॉफिट मिला मुझे, प्लस कंपनी शेयर्स हैव पेड डिविडेंड ऑफ 5 रुपीज, तो 20 रुपीज का प्रॉफिट एंड 5 रुपीज का डिविडेंड 25 हो गया, तो मेरा टोटल रिटर्न्स कितना है 25। 25 का ब्रेकअप क्या है, 20 is capital appreciation which is coming from change in the market price of the share and 5 rupees is the dividend. यही तो लिखा है फॉर्मूला में, डिविडेंड पर शेयर प्लस चेंज इन शेयर प्राइस, करेक्ट, डिवाइडेड बाय शेयर प्राइस एट स्टार्ट ऑफ द पीरियड। कितना इन्वेस्ट किया था 160, तो 160 पे कितना रिटर्न्स आया 20 प्लस 5, करेक्ट। इंटरेस्ट यील्ड, इंटरेस्ट यील्ड का फॉर्मूला, इंटरेस्ट ऊपर मार्केट प्राइस पर डेट डिनोमिनेटर। आई टोल्ड यू यील्ड मतलब डिनोमिनेटर में हमेशा मार्केट प्राइस रहेगा, वो मार्केट, अगर डिविडेंड यील्ड है तो मार्केट प्राइस ऑफ शेयर रहेगा, अगर इंटरेस्ट यील्ड है तो मार्केट प्राइस ऑफ डेट रहेगा। नीचे डिनोमिनेटर में मार्केट वैल्यू ही रहेगा, ओके। अगर डिविडेंड है तो मार्केट वैल्यू पर शेयर, अगर डेट इंटरेस्ट यील्ड है तो मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ डेट, ठीक है। दिस इज द इजीएस्ट वे ऑफ स्टडीइंग इट, आई कांट टेल यू एनी अदर वे ऑफ स्टडीइंग दीस रेशियोस। Combining ratios, P ratio is equal to dividend coverage into 1 upon dividend yield. Also can be written as P ratio is 1 upon P ratio into dividend payout ratio, that is equal to dividend yield. So this I'll tell you as to how to calculate this, क्या करने का है इसके बारे में। So I give you today's, I leave you here, but I will give you tomorrow's morning time session, afternoon session, whatever you want. And for you to revise all these ratios, because tomorrow I will be starting solving the questions on ratios. वो sheet आपको दिया है group में, so from their financial ratios I will be solving the problems. I want you to study all those ratios, not study in fact, but you have to be acquainted with all these ratios. Yes, Arya.
Sir, I wanted to ask that during class you told us, during the offline class you told us that there might be lectures starting from Tuesday for revision in the morning, 8 to 12. So will they be starting or like later on?
Of course, we are starting tomorrow.
So tomorrow we'll have a 8 to 12 offline
8
lecture.
to 12 offline lecture only for exam going students in the month of June. So all
And so in case if we are giving September, like myself, so at that time will we have a detailed revision for FM or there won't be any revision at that time?
depends upon if students are there or not there. If students are there giving the September exam, then we will have a similar session that time also. If
So
the
sir, it
students
is
are not there,
so
then
sir, it is sorry sir. Yes sir.
if the students are giving exam in September and we know, like for example, now we are having 5 students who have already said that they are 100% sure of giving the exams. So for them, we will be conducting the sessions in September also. In the month of not September, but August somewhere, we'll be conducting the revisions for them also.
So is it preferred if I attend the revision or should I wait for my examination in the morning session for the morning session?
It is better you do your complete your revision now, because I don't know how many students are there or will there be students for September for FM.
Okay, sir, then I'll come from tomorrow for the revisions as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So those 5 to 6 students who have given as to their confirmation of giving their exams in June, tomorrow morning 8 o'clock you have to be in the class at Andheri. We start the sessions from 8 to 12. Of course, break will be given to you. Like you normally have on Sundays, a break is given to you for your breakfast. So 8 to 12 we'll be having the sessions. I've already spoken to Swapnil sir also, and he has agreed to give us a classroom. So that will be going on the weekdays. And tomorrow evening, I will continue with ratios. And ratios का problems जो है वो कल evening में for all students it will be there. And that will complete the ratios part in tomorrow evening's lecture. After that evening का जो session रहेगा for 7 to 9, it is for students for revision purpose, right from the working capital topics. I will be doing complete revision of FM, and it will be in general in the sense that all the topics that are being covered up till now, that will be covered. For exam going students in the month of June, exclusive lectures from 8 to 12 will be carried on in the weekdays. And those who are joining FR, Saturday say FR lectures will be starting, and they will be held on Saturday and Sunday, FR lectures from 4 to 8, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So on Saturday also, and 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday also, right? Yes. Any questions?
So will you join online as well?
Uh,
Morning mein?
I'll try, because I tried out today in one of the classrooms. What
Mhm.
is happening is that the screen is not visible, only my audio is visible, audio is heard. So that screen is not visible. So I don't know what was the issue. I tried it in the classroom, but that was happening. So I don't know. I can share it with you, but it is a risk that you are taking of attending online. So I can't guarantee anything. I will try from my side, but I cannot guarantee anything. Technology is something which is not in my hands. I've told you this before also. So I
Okay.
will go, I will give you a link tomorrow for morning also. So you can
Okay.
do that. And all the students, I'll be just giving you a link. I want to maintain a separate WhatsApp group for exam going students in the month of June. So I'll be sharing a link with you. Please join that group. I think about 5 to 6 of you all are there. So join that group for exam going students of June, so that we can have all the conversations in that for your particular lecture, so that it does not disturb the other students in the group. Okay.
So should I join that as well? Because I'll be attending revision lectures too.
Yeah, it is better. That depends upon your time availability area. If you are able to devote your time for that, you can join. Not an issue.
Yes, so I'll be attending all offline lectures. Given that revision is being conducted, I would like to finish it right now only, like you said.
Yeah, finish. No problem. Time is something that you have to adjust. Time management you have to.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay then. Guys, exam going students, I'll be seeing you tomorrow. All of you, Arish and Prasad and all the others, Gargi, Priti, Smiksha. Okay, all of you, I will be seeing you tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. Sure. Bye. See you tomorrow.